Hello, and here we are once again for another installment of the Hareline Dubbin Fly Tying Kit Top 20 Patterns for the Beginners. Here we go. Everything you need to tie the top 20 patterns for beginners, all included in one handy kit. This is part of a video series. We're tying these live, but we're building them up in a playlist for my Project Healing Waters participants to view, as I just recently got each and every one of them one of these kits. So let's go ahead and slide on over to the bench, and we'll see about tying one of these woolly buggers according to the Hareline Dubbin Fly Tying Kit. So with this pattern, we're going to start off with our size 6 streamer hook. We're going to be using our 6/0 black Veevus thread. Our tail is going to be a Marabou blood quill, also in black. The body is a medium black chenille. And our hackle, gotta have some hackle. It's a strung Chinese saddle hackle, 5 to 7 inch black. Good stuff. And for this pattern, we're going to be using a medium copper wire for a ribbing. Now, I teach woolly buggers slightly different with my Project Healing Waters program, and I've tied a million woolly buggers slightly different than this. But it just goes to show there are many ways to tie the woolly bugger, and this is one of them. So let's go ahead and secure our hook right there in our vise, and we're going to start with our 6/0 thread about an eye's length behind the eye. And we're going to lay a thread base. Let's go ahead and trim off that tag end. Nice and close there. Let's go ahead and advance our thread all the way to the rear. We're just laying a thread base. Be careful around that tip of that hook. Keep bouncing around that all the way to the rear. And then we're going to go all the way forward. Laying a nice clean thread base. And if you notice, we're keeping that bobbin the same length away from the hook as we lay our thread base. So we're allowing the thread to spool off. We're doing this instead of this, and then wrap it down super small and then pull, because what you're doing there is you're messing your tension up. Want nice even amount of tension. Alright, so here we go. We're going to get into our tail feather, which is this Marabou feather. Let's go ahead and open this bag up. See what we got here. Some decent looking feathers in here. And not all the Marabou feathers are going to be equal, so let's go ahead and pick the best one out for this application. We're going to measure our tail length to 1 hook's length. And we got a little bit more because it kind of tapers down into some longer. But we're going to go right about there. I'm going to set that on the back end, and this is where we're going to tie it. So we end up with our hook's length in the rear. Take 1 soft wrap to capture it, a couple more locking wraps, and I'm going to do a wrap or 2 directly in front before I work my way to the rear. Alright, we're at the back end. Let's go ahead and just take a quick second. We'll trim off the remainder of that Marabou feather up front. Get that out of our way. And let's go ahead and take our thread and advance it forward one more time. Just kind of reinforce what we just tied in. And if you notice, we're not going past our point of no return. We don't want to crowd the eye here. So now at this point, we're going to take our copper wire. We're going to tie that in up front. We're going to run that the full length of the shank of the hook, so a couple soft wraps to capture it, and we'll continue wrapping towards the rear. And I like to keep the wire off to the side towards me. Alright, set this wire off to the side, and I just took a hair tie and wrapped it around that spool to make myself a little spool tender. Alright, up next, our black medium chenille. Get into that bag. And what we can do is we can pick an end, any end, doesn't matter which end. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to find the end and we're going to strip off about an 1/8 inch worth of the fuzz. Alright, take our birthday candle wick, our length right there, about our 1/8 inch. We're going to set that on the back side of the hook. I'm going to do 2 soft wraps to capture it. And then those 2 little threads, I'm going to pull those forward just a little bit to help cinch up the cord, those inner cords of that chenille, up to the thread. We'll secure that working our way forward. Alright, we'll continue our thread wraps forward towards the eye of the hook. So as a beginner fly tyer, one of the things you need to kind of keep into consideration is your order of operations and where your thread is when you start turning things and moving things around. So let's go ahead and we're going to palmer our chenille forward now, taking touching wraps. Just take your time. Nice and close touching wraps. And if you notice, I have that full length of chenille that I'm working with here. I didn't trim it down to a small little length ahead of time because I found that if I just learned to deal with the longer length material, I only cut it once and I minimize my waste down to almost nothing. Alright, we'll hold that up into the right and we'll pass our bobbin off to the left a few times, switch hands, and a couple of tight wraps. Let's go ahead and trim off our excess chenille. There you got it. Very good. Alright. Let's grab our saddle hackle. And sometimes you'll notice that when you're dyeing or dealing with dyed feathers and whatnot, you're gonna come across some that'll actually, the dye might leach off into your hands. So we're gonna take a look at our black hackle feathers and we're gonna find a nice good size one. I like big hackle with my woolly buggers. The buggier the better. Alright, so just like before with all of our other hackle feathers, we're going to find that transition point between the downy barbs and the main barbs. And once we find that transition point, we can just go ahead and trim that all off just like so. Alright, while I'm still holding onto this end, I'm going to come in and do that high and tight. So I'm going to hold the hackle between my pointer finger and my thumb, rest my scissors right there on my middle finger, and I can easily do a small little notch on either side of that hackle stem, the quill. Too easy, right? Alright, let's go ahead and tie this in. So here's the top side of the feather, here's the bottom. We're going to tie it top side up. I like to come in at a slight angle. And just make sure you get the base of that quill behind the eye of the hook. Secure that down with some locking wraps. We'll synchronize our watches because you know what time it is. It's hackle time. That's right, it's hackle time. Alright, So we're going to grab the hackle feather by the hackle tip with our hackle pliers. So go ahead and grab the feather, bend it around. It does have some flex to it, don't forget about that. And before we palmer this from the front to the rear, we're going to just break that surface tension a little bit. Just carefully smooth that out. And we're going to do our best. We're going to keep our feather oriented in this forward direction. I'm going to take one full turn up front, and then I'm going to do an open spiral, working my way to the rear. And as I'm working my material towards the rear, I'm mentally lining up. I'm drawing an imaginary line between the end of my material and the end of my fly. And if I maintain that distance more or less, we should end up, in theory, all the way to the back end with the full feather tied in. Alright, let's be careful around that tip of that hook. There we have it. End of the line. We'll take one more full turn back here. And now we're going to secure it with this copper wire. So I'm holding my hackle pliers up and to the left, and I'm going to wrap forward. Well, first I'm going to do a couple wraps to the rear, let go of those hackle pliers, and now I'm going to do an open spiral, working my ribbing forward. And I found in most cases that it's kind of, the less you think about it, the easier this is. Fluff it out if need be, and wiggle your wire if you need to get yourself through. Alright, we're up front. Hooray. Let's go ahead and lock this wire down. We're going to hold the wire up and to the right, and we're going to make a little dam for that, or a little slide for our thread to hit and fall. Slide right down nice and tight, and we'll take a couple of wraps right up front. Alright, you can helicopter it off by twisting that wire, use the base of your scissors, or just come in with a pair of nippers. Trim that off nice and close. Alright, let's go ahead and fold those fibers back, those barbs back, whatever might be hanging out up front. Got a bodkin, so let's go ahead and pick something out if it needs to be picked. And we'll tie in a nice solid head to hold down that wire, hold down that hackle, and hold it all down. Alright, whip finish time. Whoops. One, two, three. Feel it lock in, and I'm going to do one more round. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. Oh, and I broke my thread. Well, good thing I did 2 whip finishes, I suppose. Because there's that first one, or that last one just came unraveled. So we're going to go ahead and just trim off our that little bit of thread. Alright, and we have our tip of our hackle feather hanging out back here. We're going to go ahead and just give that a clean trim off. And there you have it. That's our woolly bugger. Let's add a little drop of head cement. Where did that go? There it is. So again, included in your kit, you should find some of the Loon head cement. It's a water-based. And even though it comes on with this nice big brush-on applicator tip, we're going to use our bodkin. Get one little drop and let it soak into that head. And that'll get absorbed right in there. And fear not if you get a little dab of the head cement in the eye. Let's just go ahead and take a little bit of our hackle feather stem and Stick that in there and that'll clean that all out. Now we got a nice clean eye up front. Alright. That's a nice looking woolly bugger. I'll fish that one all day long. Alright, let's set this one off to the side and reset and go through another round. Again, we are using our size 6 streamer hook. Everything's included in the kit. We're going to use our 6/0 Veevus black thread. And we're going to start up front, about an eye's length behind the eye. Nice and tight. And if you're curious as to how I tie a different variation of the woolly bugger, just go ahead and do some exploring. I believe I have some as other live streams, as well as I believe I just have a bona fide tutorial video. Work our thread from the front to the rear. Lay a little thread base. We'll be mindful around the tip of the hook. And then we'll take our thread all the way back up front again. Beautiful. Alright, shake our tail feather. Let's find ourselves a nice blood quill marabou. That's the chenille bag. There it is. There's our blood quill bag. So we're moving on to the marabou. This is a nice one. Alright, so we're going to measure this out. We got 1 hook's length. That's where we're going to tie it in, right there. Let's take a couple of soft wraps to capture it. Nice and tight. Switch hands. We'll do a couple of wraps in front. We'll get back onto the left side of that marabou. Alright, now holding that marabou, we're going to work our thread from the front to the rear, tying in our marabou. And I'm just letting this piece just kind of bounce around. It's kind of annoying, but it's not the end of the world. Alright, we're at the rear. We can go ahead and trim this off now. Let's go a little bit closer. Beautiful. Alright, once that's secured in the back end, we'll turn and burn. Bring our thread to the front, where we're going to basically do the same thing with that copper wire. And don't get too critical about what the inside of your woolly bugger looks like. The fish isn't going to see it, and no matter what, it's going to be hot. First smallmouth bass on the fly 2020 for me was on a black and yellow woolly bugger. Black body, black tail, a bright yellow hackle. Alright, we're at the rear. We'll go ahead and just set our copper wire off to the side and find our medium chenille. Once again, we're going to pick an end, any end, it doesn't matter which side. But we're going to prepare this by stripping off some of the fuzz. About an 1/8 inch or so. I like to think of it as like a birthday candle. If this was a brand new birthday candle, what would it look like? Remember when we used to blow on birthday candles and then everybody eat cake? Wow, those are the days. Alright, we'll tie this in on the back end. Advance our thread forward. Park your thread about an eye's length behind the eye. Aye, aye. start palmering forward our chenille, touching wraps. Now if you want to get some additional bulk to your woolly bugger, something you could do is tie your marabou in the back end, like I typically would do, and then you can palmer the remainder of that quill forward, and then go through all this. You just end up with a little bit more bulk. Alright, we're at our thread up front. We'll hold that up and to the right. Take our bobbin, pass it over on the back side a few times. Switch hands, and a couple of wraps in front. Alright, we'll go ahead and just trim that off nice and close. Alright, let's grab our hackle feather. Oh, and you get to be picky. We get to be picky. I think this one will do. I like big and buggy. We'll just go ahead and slide that one out. It's all strung, sewn together at the base. We're going to prepare this. We're going to find our transition point between our downy barbs and our main barbs. Find that fluff transition point and trim it off. See ya. Alright, time for that high and tight. Go ahead and hang on to that with your pointer finger and your thumb. I rest my scissors right on my middle finger, right on the pad, and then just a slight movement I can jockey that back and forth without having to try to do all that fun stuff. Alright, we're going to tie this in by our little notch that we just did. This is the top side of the feather. It's the bottom, so we're going to tie this top side up or top side out. Top side forward. Just be sure to keep the base of that quill behind the eye of the hook. And we're keeping this about that eye's length behind the eye. Aye. Check your watches. Synchronize them up. It's hackle time. Grab your hackle feather with your hackle pliers right there on the hackle tip. And we want to make sure we grab it in line like this. If we grab it at an angle, at a 90-degree angle, when we get tension on it, you're going to break that hackle feather. And that's going to be sad. Alright, before we palmer this forward, we're going to just kind of break the surface tension. Get that all fluffed out. Alright, we'll take one full turn up front. And then we'll start taking our open spiral to the rear. And there's, to me, in my opinion, there's just something magical about the woolly bugger. Oh. So when that happens, you guessed it, that's your opportunity to silently swear in your own mind. We'll re-grab our hackled stem, and we'll try that again. This tutorial is being recorded. That probably would have got edited out. Say that 5 times fast. Edited out. All the way to the back end. When we get back here, we're going to take one full turn. You did a good job keeping everything oriented in that same direction. Alright, hold that hackle up and to the left, and then we're going to set our wire directly on top of that. We're going to do at least one full turn at the rear. I'm going to do one more just for giggles and grins. And then we can start working our wire forward through the hackle. And if you end up getting a barb or two caught in there, we got these nice bodkins to just pick everything out. Nice and even. Work it through. Alright, we're up front. Again, we're still that eye's length behind the eye. Let's go ahead and take a few locking wraps behind that copper wire. Switch hands. And that's That's going to be it. Helicopter, twist it off, or use the base of your scissors. I'm going to come in with my wire nippers. Fold everything back. If there's anything facing forward, we paid for that full hackle feather. We might as well use it. Let's go ahead and build a small head up front, making sure we got everything clean and clear and secured. And then now we can do our whip finish. Up on the speed bump, down on the hook, make our triangle, and it's easy as 1, 2, 3. Just like that. Again, we're coming up on the speed bump, lay our hook down, make a triangle, and 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and slide our hook out. Trim off our thread nice and close, nice and tight. And we'll trim off the remainder of that hackle feather tip. And if you feel so inclined, you can just take a brush. Make sure everything's kind of brushed out. Looks nice and beautiful, like a beautiful, beautiful woolly bugger should. Alright, one last piece of our puzzle. We're going to add a little dab of head cement. This is that Loon water-based head cement. A little dab will glue ya. If you don't have this, Sally Hansen's is a great substitute. It's always good to get some of that secret sauce in there. Alright, we'll just let that work its way in. And that is going to be our woolly bugger. So what do you think, folks? Any questions, comments, concerns? Feel free to leave a comment below. Be sure to hit that thumbs up and that like button. And yeah, we're having a good time. Alright, let's see here. Here we go. Up next, after our woolly bugger, the next one in the series is going to be the hare's ear nymph. Yeah, I think we got time to do that here. So if you're catching these as they're coming out live, don't go too far. Just got to take a few minutes to get everything reset. We had our second Monday morning coffee session, benchside coffee. So yeah, hit that subscribe button. We got a lot of stuff coming up. Up next, hare's ear nymph. Thank you for watching. Want everybody to stay safe, stay healthy, happy tying, and you betcha, tight lines. Peace.